Yun Xiaoxiang sat before the marketing director of Maoxing Games, masking her anxiety with a smile as she launched into her pitch. Director, since you've only given me 5 minutes, I'll keep it brief. I genuinely believe that our artist is the best fit for your new game. Across from her, the director listened intently, jotting notes in his notebook. But a closer look would reveal he was actually writing. Yun Xiaoxiang, once the #1 paparazzi in entertainment, nicknamed the Scandal Queen, ex-girlfriend of entertainment tycoon Luo Yuecheng. After they broke up, she started her own agency. No A-list talent, no investors, no prospects. Ruthless and spiteful, her agency seems to exist solely to mess with Luo Yuecheng. Recently, she even used dirt on some of his actors to get her own client cast as a lead. After jotting down this long list, the director drew a big X over her name. He looked up and smiled politely at Yun Xiaoxiang as she finished her speech. At her most passionate, Yun Xiaoxiang had stood up to emphasize her points. Just as she finished her last line, she caught a glimpse of the big X on his notes. Yun Xiaoxiang didn't flinch, though her mouth twisted slightly. The director said cordially, "You've made some good points. We'll definitely consider it." Yun Xiaoxiang nodded with a smile, picked up her bag, and turned to leave. But at the door, she glanced back. "Director, by the way, I have 20/20 vision." The director froze, his hand trembling as he hesitated, unsure how to respond. With that, Yun Xiaoxiang turned and strode out with confidence. Yun Xiaoxiang left the building, fuming from her failed attempt. Her phone rang at the worst possible time. It was Luo Yuecheng. "So, no luck?" he asked. "How did you know?" she replied coldly. "Those 5 minutes were only granted because of my influence. Otherwise, do you think he'd have even met with you?" Luo Yuecheng's smirk could be heard in his voice. "Was it you who talked him out of it?" Yun Xiaoxiang's voice was icy. "I was just repaying you for sabotaging my actors," he replied smugly. "You don't think I can do it again? This game endorsement, whoever you support, I'll make sure they're dethroned," she spat, seething. This time, it's Yuan. Try it." Luo Yuecheng sounded utterly confident. "She doesn't even step outside unless she has to. I personally helped make her a star. You think I'd let you get a chance?" Yun Xiaoxiang hung up on him mid-sentence. 2 seconds later, standing on the sidewalk, she laughed so hard that tears formed in her eyes. "Fate is on my side." She clenched her fist with glee. Just because she has no scandal now doesn't mean there isn't any from before. "Luo Yuecheng, you miscalculated this time." In a flash, her spirit soared. She quickly called a former colleague, borrowing the best camera equipment. Determined to give Luo Yuecheng a hard blow, she decided to go back to her old job for a while, staking out and breaking some big news herself. At 4 p.m., Yun Xiaoxiang was crouched in a bush near an upscale kindergarten, her eyes fixed intently on the school's front entrance. One luxury car after another arrived to pick up children, and soon, most of the kids were gone. One little boy, however, repeatedly walked with his teacher to the entrance, looking out with big, disappointed eyes. Yun Xiaoxiang watched the boy carefully, lifting her camera, but kept her finger off the shutter button. Just then, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out and whispered into the receiver. "Lin Xiaoshan, what is it now?" "Yun Jia, the landlord of the place you rented for me, says his daughter got divorced and has nowhere to go. I felt sorry for him, so I moved out." "Are you kidding? Last time he said he only had a son in prison and needed rent for support. Someone probably offered him more money, and he tricked you into leaving. Get back there right now, and don't you dare give up the place." Yun Xiaoxiang whispered furiously. "But he already changed the locks," Lin Xiaoshan muttered. "Lin Xiaoshan, your brain is there to think, not just to add height," she seethed. "Look, just come over to the kindergarten near me. Find a cafe to wait in, and I'll sort it out after I'm done here." "Okay," Lin Xiaoshan agreed, and hung up. Yun Xiaoxiang felt her frustration simmering. Lin Xiaoshan, a physical education graduate with great looks and physique, had been lured to her company because of those very traits. But with his soft heart and lack of smarts, he'd been conned countless times. The thought of him made her head throb. She was so distracted that she missed a few shots of the little boy at the kindergarten. Forcing herself to refocus, she continued to wait for her opportunity. The boy didn't appear again, but soon enough, Lin Xiaoshan wandered over, dragging a large suitcase, looking around the school entrance, which immediately caught the guard's attention. Fuming, Yun Xiaoxiang racked her brain for a way to get him out of there. Just then, the boy dashed out again, looking more and more anxious and, eventually, broke free from his teacher's grasp and ran straight towards the street. He was small enough to squeeze through the school gate and dart out, oblivious to the fact that a speeding van was coming straight for him. Yun Xiaoxiang dropped her camera in shock, sprinting toward him, though her heart was sinking with dread. There was no way she'd reach him in time. She suddenly felt a pang of sympathy for the boy. Yu Wenyuan, when she first entered the industry, had been deceived into getting pregnant and had returned to her hometown to have this child. Even Yun Xiaoxiang couldn't dig up the identity of the child's father. For years, Yu Wenyuan had kept the boy's existence hidden, afraid he'd be discovered. She'd even avoided hiring a nanny, relying instead on her distant cousin and her cousin's husband to act as babysitters and drivers, raising the boy with minimal affection. This boy rarely saw his mother, and the two relatives only cared for him because they were paid to. That's why there was always a hint of fear in his gaze. It was that very look that had made Yun Xiaoxiang hesitate, camera in hand, unwilling to expose the child to the public. Still running, Yun Xiaoxiang could already envision a horrific outcome. But she forgot that standing nearby was a certain Lin Xiaoshan, a well-trained, big-hearted former athlete. In the blink of an eye, Lin Xiaoshan sprang into action, reaching full speed in seconds, like a leopard. As the van screeched to a halt, he scooped the boy up in his arms, leaping away from the vehicle's path and crashing heavily onto the ground. The boy lay safe and unharmed in his arms. A man and a woman in their middle age hurried out of the van, their faces pale with anxiety and drenched in cold sweat. The man kept scolding the woman, "I told you not to buy so many clothes. Now we're late, and we nearly hid the poor kid from their one family." The woman, her face white with fear, nervously approached and took the child from Lin Xiaoshan's arms. "Oh, my little darling. How did you end up outside on your own? Are you okay?" The young boy, his eyes wide with fright, could barely speak. He stared at the woman for a long moment before finally whispering, "Where's my mom? She promised she'd pick me up today." The woman looked embarrassed. "Your mom is busy earning money for your future wife," she replied. In that instant, the boy seemed to forget the terror of his recent ordeal. He blinked and then burst into loud sobs. The man and woman tried every endearing nickname they knew, but nothing could console the child. Meanwhile, Yun Xiaoxiang had joined Lin Xiaoshan and was checking with the teacher who had followed them out to see if the boy was hurt. The child's crying was heart-wrenching, as if he had been deeply wronged, and Yun Xiaoxiang felt her heart ache with each sob. The teacher tried to comfort the boy, but had little success. Lin Xiaoshan remained silent, his gaze fixed on the boy. No matter how Yun Xiaoxiang prompted him, he didn't say a word. Seeing this, Yun Xiaoxiang leaned in, worried he might have hit his head. But before she could ask further, Lin Xiaoshan suddenly stepped around her and strode towards the boy, scooping him up from the teacher's arms. "I'll take you to find your mom," he said. Everyone was taken aback by his bold move, and the boy looked at him, wide-eyed. "Really?" he asked. Before Lin Xiaoshan could respond, the middle-aged couple and the teacher rushed forward, wary, trying to take the boy back. But Lin Xiaoshan was as strong as a bear, and despite the trio's combined efforts, they couldn't pry the child from his arms. Yun Xiaoxiang was shocked at her brother's tenacity. She recalled he'd once mentioned being raised by his grandfather while his parents worked away from home. Maybe the boy had triggered memories of his own childhood. But memories or not, this couldn't continue. Seeing the couple preparing to call the police and the teacher signaling for security, Yun Xiaoxiang quickly leaned over and whispered something in Lin Xiaoshan's ear. Upon hearing her words, Lin Xiaoshan's expression softened as he looked at the boy, almost tearfully. Still, he reluctantly released him to the couple. Perhaps it was because Lin Xiaoshan had saved him, or because he was the only one willing to help him find his mother, or maybe the warmth of Lin Xiaoshan's embrace had made the boy feel secure. Whatever the reason, as soon as he left Lin Xiaoshan's arms, he burst into fresh tears. "I want to stay with Uncle." The couple hastily bundled him into the car, while Lin Xiaoshan called after them. "I'll come see you again. Next time, I'll bring you something nice and wait with you for your mom." The car door slammed shut, and it sped away. Through the back window, the boy watched Lin Xiaoshan, his eyes glistening with tears. Lin Xiaoshan stood there silently, watching as the car drove off, his lips pressed together. Yun Xiaoxiang glanced at him, then quickly turned to the teacher and security guard, putting on a polite smile. "I apologize, my brother can be a bit stubborn. He's just a big-hearted guy, he meant no harm to the child." The young teacher shot a glance at Lin Xiaoshan. For a moment, her gaze softened and she murmured, "Good deeds are commendable, but maybe not so intense." Yun Xiaoxiang nodded in agreement, apologizing profusely. As the teacher continued to glance at Lin Xiaoshan, her face reddened and her tone grew increasingly gentle. In the end, she seemed to have forgotten her intent to scold him for holding the child. Seeing that the tension had eased, Yun Xiaoxiang quickly took Lin Xiaoshan's hand, ready to leave. But the teacher called out, can I get your brother's number? He did save the boy, after all. We haven't even thanked him properly. Yun Xiaoxiang was caught off guard but quickly pinched Lin Xiaoshan's arm to keep him from answering. Smiling sheepishly, she leaned closer to the teacher and whispered, "To be honest, my brother has some, issues. We don't let him have a phone. We're afraid he'd get scammed." Really? The teacher looked skeptical. Yun Xiaoxiang put on a serious face. People who rush to save strangers and offer to find their parents, that's the stuff of movies. In real life, how many sane people would do that? The teacher mulled it over, gazing at Lin Xiaoshan with a tinge of regret. She then asked Yun Xiaoxiang, "So, what exactly did you say to him just now to make him give up on helping the boy find his mom?" Yun Xiaoxiang leaned closer to her and whispered, "I told him the boy's mom had died long ago, but they'd kept it from him." The teacher raised her eyebrows. "You and your brother truly are a match." Yun Xiaoxiang's luck wasn't exactly stellar. She'd already broken a friend's expensive photography equipment and had to pay a hefty sum in compensation. In a bad mood and feeling the pinch, she took out her frustrations on Lin Xiaoshan at work every day. She was so reluctant to spend more that she didn't even rent a place for him to stay. Instead, Lin Xiaoshan ended up crashing on the company's sofa, while Yun Xiaoxiang put him through a rigorous daily regime. From physical training to acting classes to music lessons, she made sure he was busy from dawn to dusk, to the point where he was often left dizzy and exhausted. As for the gaming endorsement, Yun Xiaoxiang refused to admit defeat. When there seemed to be no other way, she was even ready to bring Lin Xiaoshan to plead her case with the CEO of the gaming company, Moss Games. Just look at Xiaoshan's long legs, his broad chest, his washboard abs, and that perfect jawline. Those high cheekbones, sculpted features, tan skin, and undeniable aura of masculinity. He's the living embodiment of a special forces soldier. With this vision in her mind, Yun Xiaoxiang doubled down on his training, leaving Lin Xiaoshan struggling to keep up. One day, while working with the coach to drill him, she suddenly received a call from an unfamiliar number. Signaling for Lin Xiaoshan to keep practicing his lines, she stepped aside to answer. "Hello, who's this?" A soft yet cold voice came from the other end. "It's Yuan Yuan." Yun Xiaoxiang felt momentarily disoriented.
Yuan Yuan?
Why would she be calling? Could it be that she'd found out Lin Xiaoshan had saved her son and wanted to repay the favor by backing out of the endorsement deal? Eagerly, Yun Xiaoxiang replied, "Oh, Wang Yuan, we've seen each other around, but this is the first time we're actually speaking." "You're despicable," Yuan Yuan interrupted coldly, leaving Yun Xiaoxiang bewildered. "What do you mean?" Yun Xiaoxiang was still trying to grasp what was happening. "You think the security cameras outside the kindergarten are for decoration? I reviewed the footage and it clearly shows you standing there with a camera, trying to record who." Gone was Yuan Yuan's usual softness, replaced by a sharp, almost venomous edge. "I can explain. I didn't actually record anything, alright? Besides, your son looked like a little angel. He moved my conscience." "Does that count?" Yun Xiaoxiang's face reddened. She usually didn't feel ashamed about being a paparazzo. As long as she didn't break the law, she believed that if celebrities flaunt their perfect image in public, someone should be there to reveal if that shine holds up behind closed doors. However, when it came to children, that was another story. At the time, she'd held back from publishing anything because it involved a child. This time, though, she'd let her anger at Luo Yueqing cloud her judgment. Even though she hadn't actually filmed anything, she couldn't deny her actions, and Yuan Yuan's outrage left her feeling uncomfortable. Hoping to ease the tension, Yun Xiaoxiang added, "And besides, when your kid was about to get hit, I even ran to save him." Her comment only seemed to add fuel to the fire. Yuan Yuan's voice turned chilling. "Yun Xiaoxiang, when Luo Yueqing left you, I actually felt sorry for you. I didn't realize you could be this conniving, plotting to secretly film a child while also arranging for someone to heroically save him, so you could worm your way in closer. Quite the schemer, aren't you? Yun Xiaoxiang's face darkened. She was hot-tempered by nature. She could admit when she was wrong, but being falsely accused was like lighting a fuse on a powder keg, especially when it involved Luo Yuecheng. You seriously have some nerve. Filming your kid was wrong, sure, but I didn't go through with it. If I had, it'd be all over the tabloids by now. And speaking of your kid, if you can stand to have him, why can't you stand to have others notice him? What's your point? Yu Wenyuan's attitude softened a bit, but remained cold. Believe whatever you want. Yes, I was there to take pictures, but my artist is an airhead who just got evicted by his landlord, with nowhere else to go. He didn't even know what I was doing. You've really overdone your detective role here. Holmes reincarnated, are we? Her barrage of words left Yu Wenyuan speechless for a moment. With a huff, she managed to say, "Just stay away from my son from now on." Unbelievable. Yun Xiaoxiang snapped, hanging up. But as she turned around, she found Lin Xiaoshan watching her intently, his clear eyes fixed on her. "Didn't you say his mother passed away?" From the phone, Yu Wenyuan's furious voice erupted again. "Yun Xiaoxiang, did you just curse me?" Yun Xiaoxiang quickly ended the call, putting on a serious expression as she addressed Lin Xiaoshan. "Go practice your fundamentals. No eavesdropping, okay?" Yun Xiaoxiang felt her hopes of getting a piece of the game endorsement deal slipping away. There seemed to be no way in, yet she couldn't bring herself to expose that melancholic kid to the media. In her frustration, Yun Xiaoxiang unleashed a stricter training regimen on Lin Xiaoshan, silently lamenting that, if not for her savings from her days as a paparazzi, she'd be broke by now. Just then, her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. She glanced at the screen. It was Yuan again. She ignored the call, but it rang again immediately. After the third call, she finally answered with a sigh. "What do you want this time?" A pause on the other end, then Yuan spoke. "The man who saved my son. Is he one of your artists?"
Yes, so?
Yun Xiaoxiang replied casually, but suddenly felt suspicious. "He has nothing to do with your case. Don't get any ideas." "It's not that." Yuan hesitated. "Could I invite him to my house?" Yun Xiaoxiang's guard went up. "Listen, Yuan, I was wrong to even consider taking photos of your kid, but I didn't. And we saved your child." "No, you don't understand. My son has been crying and asking for that man who saved him. He refuses to go to daycare or eat. No one can calm him down." Yuan's voice sounded embarrassed. Yun Xiaoxiang was stunned for a moment before breaking into laughter. "Ha ha. Oh, Yuan, where's all that attitude from last time? So tough back then, and now look at you." Yuan's tone grew colder. "I'm willing to compensate him for his time." "We don't need compensation. Just help us get the endorsement for Maosheng Entertainment." Yuan paused. "That's not up to me. You're the biggest star at Yuecheng Entertainment. Luo Yuecheng would definitely consider your suggestion. Plus, he's been working with Maosheng Entertainment for years. It's not like they can't make exceptions." Yuan scoffed. "Dream on. I'd rather let my son cry for days than agree to that." She hung up. Yun Xiaoxiang looked at the screen with a resigned smile. Seemed like she really was going to be the laughingstock for Luo Yuecheng this time. When she looked up, Lin Xiaoshan was standing quietly in front of her. "Is it about that kid?" "Back to your training," Yun Xiaoxiang ordered sharply, cutting him off. But for the next few days, Lin Xiaoshan kept following her around, silently looking at her with those same pleading eyes. Every time she made eye contact, he'd murmur, "That kid was crying so sadly." Finally, fed up, she snapped, "You're too soft-hearted to survive in this industry. You should be off helping people instead." "You're the one who forced me into this," he muttered under his breath.
Me?
"I was just trying to keep you from getting conned." Yun Xiaoxiang, though guilty, glared at him defensively. But Lin Xiaoshan met her gaze with a sincerity that was hard to refuse. That child situation just reminds me of myself. Back when my classmates used to tease me for being an orphan, all I wanted was for someone to take me to find my parents. Since no one would, I'd sneak off on my own, sometimes running 10 miles before grandpa or a teacher found me. So, that's how you built up the endurance for athletic recruitment? Yun Xiaoxiang tried to joke to lighten the mood. But Lin Xiaoshan didn't smile. Instead, he looked her straight in the eye. I want to take that kid to his mom. His gaze was so pure, so determined, that Yun Xiaoxiang found herself unable to refuse. She sighed and waved her arms in defeat. Fine, you win. She grabbed her phone and found Yuan's number, calling her back. My artist wants to visit your kid to make sure he's okay. Yuan didn't sound as grateful as Yun Xiaoxiang expected. Instead, she was silent for a moment before asking, why? What do you mean, why? Yun Xiaoxiang was baffled. I mean, why did he suddenly change his mind? What are you guys up to? Yuan pressed. He's just soft-hearted. What else? Yun Xiaoxiang snapped. Then she hesitated. Wait, do you think I'm out to frame you or something? Yuan laughed bitterly. You're the queen of blackmail in this industry. Everyone knows that. Yun Xiaoxiang's temper flared, but Yuan interrupted. If he's willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement, he can visit my son. Are you serious? An NDA? Who do you think you are? Yun Xiaoxiang was fuming. Take it or leave it. Yuan shot back coldly. Just as Yun Xiaoxiang was about to hang up, Lin Xiaoshan's gentle eyes pleaded silently beside her. He said softly, It's fine. I'll sign it. I don't care who his mom is. I just don't want him to go through what I did. Faced with his innocent resolve, Yun Xiaoxiang could only sigh in resignation. She spat into the phone. Did you hear that? Some people really can't fathom kindness without suspicion. Yuan coughed lightly before saying, The NDA? Yun Xiaoxiang rolled her eyes. So, we're signing or not? Yes, we're signing. Yuan said firmly. Yun Xiaoxiang muttered a curse under her breath. After signing a confidentiality agreement and agreeing to pay a penalty of 10 million yuan if any information is leaked, Lin Xiaoshan began frequently visiting a high-end apartment secretly purchased by Yuan, spending time with her child. Since signing with Yun Xiaoxiang's company, Lin Xiaoshan had never been this happy. Every day, he would come back home, endlessly talking about taking the child to the amusement park one day, the museum the next. Occasionally, he would also express some concern. He's so dependent on me. It must be because, like me when I was a child, he longs for a strong, protective father. Kids without fathers grow up timid. Yun Xiaoxiang gave him a glance. Stop worrying about ancient ideas. He's going to grow up with a famous mom, and his life will probably be 100 times better than yours. Lin Xiaoshan smiled without saying anything, but his gaze clearly said, You and I have a generation gap. You wouldn't understand what I'm saying. At that moment, Yun Xiaoxiang suddenly felt a wave of when children grow up, they don't listen to their mothers. It wasn't hard to understand why she felt this way. Lin Xiaoshan had never been particularly passionate about his entertainment career or fame. Now, it seemed he had found something he truly loved. He had transformed into a super dad, vowing to make up for the regrets of his own childhood by devoting himself to this child. His acting lessons became fewer and fewer, and the time he spent sleeping at night became later and later. If it weren't for knowing that Yuan's career was super busy, Yun Xiaoxiang would have suspected that Yuan had used her charm to completely captivate Lin Xiaoshan. And sometimes, suspicion proves to be true. One day, Lin Xiaoshan didn't return home that night. The next day, Yun Xiaoxiang asked around at the company and found out that Lin Xiaoshan hadn't returned. She immediately called him. The person who answered the phone was Yuan, her voice lazy, as if she had just woken up. Xiaoshan is sleeping. You can call back later. After saying this, she hung up, and when Yun Xiaoxiang tried calling again, no one answered. Yun Xiaoxiang's temper flared, and she rushed straight to Luo Yuechen. Luo Yuechen, your artist is seducing my artist. Aren't you going to do something about it? Luo Yueching was in his office, sipping tea when he was startled by her words, spilling a cup of hot water on his hand. He winced in pain and covered his hand, asking, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Luo Yueching knew about Yuan's child. It was he who had called Yun Xiaoxiang earlier to ask her to cover up the matter. Yun Xiaoxiang didn't try to hide it and briefly explained the situation. Luo Yueching immediately turned dark. To say you have a thick face is flattering you. You're the one who arranged for your artist to get close to Yuan, and now you're blaming her for seducing your artist. It was her who begged to meet Xiaoshan. You can ask her, Yun Xiaoxiang yelled. Luo Yueching scowled. Yuan can be with anyone, but she absolutely cannot be with your artist. Now I'm going to break them up. Exactly what I intend to do, Yun Xiaoxiang said, not backing down. She followed Luo Yueching, both of them storming off to Yuan's apartment. When they arrived at the apartment, they rang the doorbell furiously. After a long while, Yuan finally opened the door, still looking groggy. Seeing them, Yuan was surprised. Aren't you two broken up? Stop talking nonsense. Where is Xiaoshan? Yun Xiaoxiang barged past Yuan, rushing inside to find him. As soon as they entered the living room, Yun Xiaoxiang saw Lin Xiaoshan lying on the carpet, his arms stretched out with Yuan's child lying in his arms. The two of them were sleeping in the same position, like a real father and son. It looked like a warm, heartwarming scene. Yun Xiaoxiang fell silent, staring at Lin Xiaoshan for a long time, suddenly feeling a sense of sadness, like watching a pig she had raised for years run off to root around in someone else's cabbage patch, leaving the cabbage behind in another person's pigsty. What's going on? Why is he spending the night here? Luo Yueching, behind her, asked quietly. The child had a fever last night and wouldn't sleep. Only Xiaoshan could stay with him and make him sleep. Xiaoshan stayed up with him until dawn, so I let him rest here, Yuan answered in a soft voice. Even so, he shouldn't be spending the night here. He's a grown man, anything could happen, it's too dangerous. Luo Yueching said seriously. But Yun Xiaoxiang, dejected, turned around and left without saying another word. What was there to say? The pig was never coming back, and the cabbage was already someone else's. She had gone to great lengths for nothing, didn't land the endorsement, and now lost Xiaoshan as well. After that day, Yun Xiaoxiang was deeply affected, feeling dispirited and downcast. Even when Luo Yueching called her to argue, she didn't engage, to the point where Luo Yueching came in person to check on her, thinking she had some terminal illness. Actually, 2 days before the game advertisement shoot, Yun Xiaoxiang, holding on to a glimmer of hope, called Yuan. The conversation that day went like this. Yun Xiaoxiang rubbed her hands together with a silly grin. Wan, look at how much Xiaoshan has helped you. Why not let go of the endorsement? You don't really need it. No way, even mosquito legs are meat. More is always better than less. I'm not letting go of this endorsement. Yuan replied with a soft laugh. Then let Xiaoshan come back. I'll train him so he can take on other gigs. Yun Xiaoxiang took a step back. Not happening. My son needs him, Yuan answered with a cheerful smile. Wait, so you won't give up the job and you won't return him either? Are you some sort of mafia in the entertainment industry? Yun Xiaoxiang was thoroughly pissed, ready to blow up, when she heard Lin Xiaoshan shouting on the other end, Hurry up and check if the picture I drew is good. Yuan hurriedly agreed, hung up without even saying goodbye. Yun Xiaoxiang completely deflated, gazing up at the sky at a 45-degree angle with sadness. This time, the pig is really gone. With no hope for the endorsement, and her artist turning on her, Yun Xiaoxiang took another blow. She topped up her game account with another 1,000 yuan and started grinding in the game day and night. While she was failing at work, she found success in the game, where her levels skyrocketed. The day Yuan's game endorsement shoot began, Lin Xiaoshan wasn't even at the office, and there wasn't a trace of him anywhere. Yun Xiaoxiang channeled her frustration into power, dominating the game. Just when things were heating up, Luo Yueching's call came in again. Yun Xiaoxiang, seeing red, picked up the phone and shouted, "What is it?" Luo Yuecheng was stunned for a moment, then shouted louder than her, "Yun Xiaoxiang, you're really despicable. You used a handsome man to steal our endorsement." Yun Xiaoxiang raised an eyebrow, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You had your artist use their looks to seduce Ruan and hijack our endorsement. How despicable." Luo Yuecheng was furious. Yun Xiaoxiang's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that? She quickly asked, did Ruan give up the endorsement because she was moved by Xiaoshan? It's even worse than that. Ruan threatened me with a contract termination, forcing me to go to the senior management of Maosheng and add your despicable artist to the endorsement. The advertisement storyline, the posters, everything has to match the one Ruan is featured in. Isn't this using Ruan's popularity to give him free publicity and more followers? Luo Yuecheng was yelling in anger. The shock was too much for Yun Xiaoxiang, and she didn't react immediately. After 2 seconds of silence, she burst into a loud, triumphant laugh. "Ha ha, Luo Yuecheng, I won this battle again. Bet you didn't see that curveball coming." Luo Yuecheng didn't say another word and slammed the phone down in frustration. Yun Xiaoxiang was so thrilled she almost jumped up, pacing around the office, not knowing what to do with her excitement. Just then, the door to her office suddenly opened. Yun Xiaoxiang quickly composed herself and sat upright on the couch, looking towards the door. Standing in the doorway was a handsome young man, in his early 20s, with a cool and distant demeanor uncommon for someone his age. He leaned against the door and looked at Yun Xiaoxiang. "My role was taken from me. People from Yuecheng Entertainment replaced me." Yun Xiaoxiang's excitement was immediately cut short. "Luo Yuecheng," she muttered through gritted teeth, "I knew you hung up so fast for a reason. You were waiting for me here." She narrowed her eyes. "This battle isn't over. I'm going to make you lose, and you'll admit it."